Hello. Today, I wanted to talk about something that I experienced when I was first learning to draw. Now, when I was first learning to draw, I was always using my wrist, so doing really small movements. I still kind of struggle with that. It's kind of just as bad as my penmanship. Something like I probably need to work on my wrist drawing a lot more because I feel like that's like a different part. But a big thing about drawing is actually using your shoulder. So with your shoulder, you can get a wider arc of motion. So with that, you could draw things larger. And it's good to get in the habit of like trying to use your shoulder for everything. I mean, it makes things a lot more convenient. I feel like I feel like you could have a lot more success getting stuff and drawing stuff if you're using your shoulder. Now, I'm not saying everything you draw has to be massive, but eventually, when you use your shoulder so much, being able to draw even small things becomes a lot easier. Granted, you should always practice or ghost a line before you ever draw it, but I think it is really important to use your shoulder because, like, as I learned from the Drawbox course, the benefit of using your shoulder was that you don't get fatigued as much. So normally, if you're using your wrist, you kind of get a bit tired out when you do that. And when people, well, basically, when you draw any line, you should be trying to execute it in like one swoop. I mean, not every line. I mean, you could always like build things up. Like I'm trying to draw a shoulder I'm looking at off screen, and the one big thing about it, I should have matched that up more. The one thing about drawing with your shoulder is I feel like you get more confident lines initially, but you could definitely draw smaller. It took a lot of practice for me to eventually get to the point of being able to really draw anything. Like I feel more comfortable. Uh, I feel more comfortable drawing with my shoulder than using my wrist. I don't feel comfortable using my wrist at all. Like, even when I write my name, I still feel like I'm not comfortable with it. It's just my opinion, but like when I'm using my shoulder, I feel like I have so much more confidence with it, and that's just because of the habit that I formed with it. Um, so another thing about that was when I was first trying to draw with my shoulder, time and time again, I would kind of get a bit stuck. So let me show you. Right here, I drew a point here and a point here. Now, the thing that I realized is that ghosting helps a lot, but more often than not, my mind would kind of get a bit stuck, and my shoulder would get stuck. I feel like I wasn't able to draw it. Or, like, let's say I was ghosting it. If you watch my point, like, my cursor's a bit small. That's kind of the downside to me doing digital and not showing you with a pencil. But if you look where my cursor is, think of like right here, you could kind of see me moving my cursor a bit. It's like a speck. It's basically just like one pixel. The reason why I do that in my drawing program is because I believe it's as close as I can get to mimicking a real pencil. Like if I was using a 0.5 millimeter mechanical pencil, it would kind of be equivalent in that. But basically, if you see where my cursor is, I'm starting at this point here, and I'm ghosting my line to this point. So when I was doing that, I would sometimes get like stuck. Like for some reason, like I couldn't follow through with the execution. It's kind of like because of my lack of experience using my shoulder to draw, I just couldn't do it at all. And I feel like I just lacked the motion. Perhaps my arm wasn't used to like pivoting in that motion. I also draw from right to left, while I want to say in the Drawbox course they wanted you to draw from left to right. For some reason, I found it more comfortable for me to draw towards myself, and I also found it comfortable for me that whenever I execute a line, I could always see where I'm going. Like, I felt more often than not, when I was drawing from left to right, I couldn't always see exactly where I was going. I mean, I can in this case, and more often than not, you are supposed to rotate your paper when you draw, so you're always kind of drawing from the same direction. It all has to do with getting comfortable at it, but over time, just from a ton of drawing, I feel like I can draw from different directions, although it's not always the most comfortable. Like, like in this case, drawing from left to right, I can't see where I'm going, and I feel like I can eventually get in that motion and kind of predict it, but I feel like eventually I'm going to like I feel like it would be more guessing. But let's just say that like from all the practice that I've done, even drawing from this motion, my shoulder doesn't freeze up. Granted, I botched that, probably because I didn't ghost enough, but like my mind doesn't freeze. So yeah, I would see myself getting like frozen. It's like I in my mind I thought I'd be able to draw further, but then my arm would just stop, even though I planned a lot to get that line. And I think that's the point of ghosting. The point of ghosting is to get a little extra drawing practice for that line, because every line is a unique case. And when you do that practice, you eventually get in the flow of it. Granted, it takes just a ton of practice. I think it's definitely worth it, even though I kind of stopped ghosting my lines here and there, and it's something like I really want to do more. I think the reason why I kind of stopped ghosting my lines was because when I started making YouTube videos, I wanted to get to the point of certain things, and I think I didn't want to waste the viewer's time with me ghosting, but I think it's important for me to ghost from here on out, just because it's important to get that concept down more often than not than just trying to draw any line I can and then doing Control Z. I think Control Z effectively is a bit annoying and kind of maybe gets me in a habit of something I really shouldn't be doing. But maybe it can be like I missed it. I should have been more precise. But just know that it takes a lot of practice, like years. It's definitely worth it in the long run, but it just takes so much practice. And I feel like with digital, I feel like you kind of lack you lack control in digital compared to like physical. But I'll have to test that again. It has been a while since I've drawn with a mechanical pencil. It's just something like, you know, I may do that in the future. I'm not sure if I'll make a video like in person recording it, because it's a bit complicated to do that. I don't really have a good setup. Like, I guess I could try to rig my phone to like be on a stand somehow and kind of like be in front of me on paper, but I don't have the best lighting in my room, so that could be a downside to it. I mean, I do have some mini lights that I can probably use to kind of get a good light source, but yeah, I will work on that. But yeah, just know that like like thinking you can draw further, but then your arm or your shoulder just your shoulder just stopping could be a very common thing that happens. But do know that it does get better over time. Also know that when you draw lines at all, you don't always have to execute them in one. Like when I drew the shoulder here, or when I tried to draw it, I drew like this. It's kind of like the skin going up to your neck. I drew that as a separate line. I drew like the first muscle as its own like curved line. I drew like the segment connecting from that. Like you can like start at one line. Like you can draw one line. I'm gonna ghost that again. But you can start at one line, and I did that bad again. The other thing that I want to tell you, as I draw in these videos and I do my demonstrations, I have realized that I am under a bit of, I guess you could say, performance anxiety, and I've realized that I tend to make more mistakes when I'm recording myself, because being in front of any audience kind of puts a bit of a stress on me, and I've realized that when I do it on my own, I don't always get that. And I know this is something that will go away with time, until if I ever do like a live stream, and then there goes my performance anxiety back again. But I have realized that like you may be seeing me make more mistakes than I feel like I actually make if I'm trying to draw for like practice. So yeah, I drew that line. Probably should have ghosted more. I'll try it again. and I made it. And like what you can do is you can like start at that point and maybe like try another point. So like know that like you don't have to draw a line like that, like draw then like change trajectories. I mean, I guess you could do that, but I mean like you can do it in segments. You don't have to follow it through. Although I have seen some artists in which they try to draw an entire thing in one continuous line. But that was a stylistic choice. That is probably not for the faint of heart. Probably requires a lot of experience and maybe even plotting dots beforehand to try to connect everything. One last thing that I do want to share. I'm just going to open up an image. Oops, sorry. An image real quick. Another thing that helped me initially when I was trying to draw with my shoulder, obviously I made a practice routine. I have another video on that. Maybe I'll link it in the description just to kind of focus on it, or like so you have a reference point. But one thing that I would do is a part of my daily exercise for about 5 minutes or so. I had this image. I got this image, I believe, from Brooks Eggleston. He has a YouTube channel, and I think he was talking about the benefits of slow drawing. Basically, what you try to do is you try to stay within the border of the line drawn here. And you try to do that for the entire thing. And I would like do this for 5 minutes, sometimes starting from the top, going to the bottom. Other times I would also like try to turn it horizontal or vertical, diagonal, and practice that way. I actually did make a couple practice sheets. I kind of stopped that because I wasn't sure if anyone was using them. I think maybe in the future, if people like it, I'll make more ones and I'll just like put them on my website. But yeah, you can see I made a lot of mistakes here. But the whole idea of that is to get in the flow of using your shoulder and trying to draw throughout the whole way through. But I think doing stuff like that really helps you get used to drawing from your shoulder. And I'm not saying you have to do that for hours on end. I'm just saying give it 5 minutes a day every day, and it really helps you get in the flow of doing it. And like, you know, but like I said, drawing is, maybe I didn't say this, drawing is something like you really need to do every day. You need to have a practice routine to get in the habit of drawing every day, and every day it gets a little less harder. It's always a bit of a challenge, which I think is the fun thing in it, but just know that like it eventually becomes less painful. Like, no, I will say that like initially my experience at first was like I found it very painful. I don't think I could say it any other way. I found it very painful to draw with my shoulder, and I felt like it was a combination of doing the action and also a mental block. But that was my experience. Maybe you'll have an easier experience, maybe you'll have a harder experience, but I want you to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So yeah, I hope this helps you, or maybe it could help me, or help you understand my viewpoint, and maybe understand that if you're experiencing the same issue that you can eventually get over it. But yeah, if you have a question, please ask in the comments. If you like my content, please subscribe to my channel. But thank you for listening. Bye.